And I took quite some time to explain it to Peter,
Okay.
that we wrote every day, didn't we?
Yeah.
And that was a commission that I had made to him when he asked me to marry him. That I would write. That was my promise to him. I didn't promise I would marry him, particularly at any time, or et cetera, et cetera. But my idea was that I would wait for him, I would marry him. Now, we are and the years are hard for me to do. So, the war is ending in May of 1944. All right. So you've got this in place.
Okay.
In that time, we have been married since September of '43 to May of 1944.
Okay.
So we know each other pretty well. And one of the things that, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think it's true. We both were smart. We both are smart. We work against each other, but we work with each other.
Okay.
And there's plenty of times when himself over there went on his own way. And one of the things that he did that was important to me, important to him, was that he could trust me. And it was the trust, but you couldn't trust him. It was the trust that he did not have with his family.
Okay.
And I was now, is that true?
Yes.
It is true. I wrote to him, he asked me to marry him. 2 weeks later, I was married to him, and I left and went with him. And over that time, we wrote to each other daily when we were apart. And you have to understand that we got a scheme of writing that I'm going to have to get water. You can get me water.
I'll get you water. Okay.
Whatever the thing is still here.
All right.
It was something that we had in the box, or yeah, I can still feel it.
You have a good pink tummy.
Yes.
Okay. Here you are.
We worked up a scheme of how to write to each other. That's all right. And it grew as he did not write. He never wrote a single letter. I think maybe he wrote 2. Between the time he arrived to get to OCS, the officers training thing, he didn't write me at all. He sent me a postcard, but he didn't write me for all of the months that he was in OCS.
Okay.
Do you understand that?
Yes.
I wrote him every day.
Yes.
All right. So that a pattern was established at that point in time. And as I explained to Peter, and I'm sorry to do this all over again, Peter, we got into a pattern of how to write,
All right.
what we could write, and I got a deeper understanding of how the military works.
Okay.
And he had, particularly because he had graduated at the top of his class and was supposed to stay to teach instead of going, which was a big deal.
Okay.
I mean, now I'm there and I'm going to come and this, that, and another thing. So you see where our change in writing happened.
Okay.
Right. Now he is at the top of his class at OCS. He goes to Gruber and he meets 10 very important people. I didn't tell you about that. But there were 10 people there at Gruber that were different real officer material.
Okay.
If you see, you have the regular Maine officers, but Maine people, and you got warrant officers, and you got this, that, and another thing. But there were 10 people that he thought were good people to be with, and he made friends with them.
Okay.
A lot of them were old military. He's really very smart about the people he has picked to do a bunch of things. All right, now those people, about 8 of them, stayed together, and I have letters that can show you this. And 5 of them ended up together all through the whole war, which is absolutely, and Peter can tell you this, absolutely an amazing thing to have happened. In the meantime, he has risen in the trust with the people there in the military. He is one at home in the military. He is comfortable with the military. He understands the rules. He can play the games just the same as they can and end up ahead. All right. So he learned how to play the military game. He learned it when he was in the 4 years in Syracuse, because these were military officers that were teaching him
At ROTC.
At ROTC. He learned it in OCS. He learned it in Gruber. And then he learned it when they were waiting to go overseas. And these guys still stayed together.
Okay.
What I'm going to read you is a letter that was written on May, what was it, Peter, 2nd? 6th. The war ended on the 6th, on May 2nd.
Okay.
All right. Now, we have written every day, but of course our mail,
Crosses. Yeah.
it doesn't match at all.
Right.
But I wrote every day, and he wrote every day that he could. And this is the letter. And he censors his own mail. Now, one of the things that I don't know.
All mail was censored.
All mail is censored, but he was a censor.
Right.
And he had to censor his own mail.
Right.
And one of the things that you did, you had to censor the mail.
Right.
And he did censor the mail. And he censored his own mail.
Yes.
In his head.
Right.
Which is what I want you to understand when we're reading this letter.
All right.
That this letter is so that the warrant officer who comes in and decides to look it over, see whether he really is, the warrant officer thinks this is simply a personal letter without information, but he is giving me a whole lot of information, and if you listen carefully, he is also word playing with this. And I knew it at the time. I knew it when I got the letter, and I had had a lot of other letters in which he did this. It's game playing with him, in which he plays this kind of game. All right. As I remember, the last letter was written south of Nuremberg on the road to Munich. As you have seen, Munich is now a town of the past. It was probably the easiest ones to fall to us yet. Whether away now is a question. I'm not sure if the war does not end in a day or so, that it will ever end. Much to my surprise, Jack Westbrook and Mac, remember them, those people?
Yes.
Okay. And Jack and Mac were people I knew. I'd met them in Gruber. They came to my house and had dinner with me, and they went overseas together, and they had gone through the whole war together. Then this happened, and they were wounded. Much to my surprise, Jack Westbrook and Mac both came back to the company, both in the best of health. This means that for the first time since I took over the company, I have my full quota of first officers, which also reminds me that in my last letter, I mentioned that I had trouble with the shit that was flying and had put in for a transfer. And also that I didn't think that it would be necessary to push it through. it boils down to the fact that one of us had to go, either the colonel or I. Naturally, I expected it would be me. It wasn't. The colonel has gone.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, we were where, we don't know, but he is no longer in command of the regiment, and his successor and I seem to get on fairly well, so I imagine that I'll stay around a while longer. Strange are the ways of life.
Mm-hmm.
Now you see, so far, he's hit about 3 different subjects.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Last night, my first shipment of hair oil arrived in perfect shape. My dandruff is nearly all gone already, and Russ and I had a fine dinner. Russ and I had a fine dinner with a combination of your package and one he got. Now, this is one of the things that is so interesting, is that there were 5 men in charge. He's the top. Russ is down on the bottom. Russ had been trained coming up and had been made an officer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was regular, was not the same as the rest of these guys were trained.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and so there was Jack, and there's Mac and Jack and Wes and Johnny Bolt
Mm-hmm.
and Russ. And it was interesting that he and Russ were eating together, shared the things. This was information that was being given to me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see how it was? His hair oil, of course, was liquor,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and et cetera. And they had a fine dinner in the combination of your package and one that he got. So now he and Russ are together.
Mhm.
So you can see there's another piece of information here. We had the honor of taking Dachau and its notorious concentration camp, probably the most famous and oldest in Germany. I didn't see it myself, avoided it as a matter of fact. But many of the men, including Johnny Bolt, did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't find out until recently that Russell went in, turned around, and came back out,
Mm-hmm.
in spite of all he said.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew what it was, but he left.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Bolt stayed. Johnny Bolt, and I explained this to Peter, was brought up as a rich South Carolina prep school
Mm-hmm.
kid from a wealthy family who
Mhm.
believed in honor. And I liked him very much. He was smaller than the others, but he was smart, and he was very, very much a gentleman, and he
Mhm.
was very nice to me. He committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
He had a wife and a new baby, and he committed suicide. And he stayed at Dachau, and I think Russ and I both believe that he
Mhm.
never got over the
Mm-hmm.
things that he saw. All right. And if they didn't say it in words, how can I say it? How can I write it? Suffice to say that all the stories and pictures you've seen and heard about such places are true. There are plus many other equally unbelievable. The usual crematorium with so many more, the usual crematorium with a room full of bloodless corpses waiting for their turn, carrying carloads and a mile of them, loaded with those who starved to death, bodies where they fell in graves that they themselves had dug, and it all was true. And then to enter Munich with the people waving flags and laughing and crying. It's hard to understand how the two fit together. And of course, you know that his Jeep was the first one in,
Mm-hmm.
and that the man was at the top of the stairs, holding the surrender. Right, George?
Yeah.
Walked down the stairs and handed it
Mm-hmm.
to George. My radio still serves me faithful and has repaid itself already. Usually there are no lights or heat or water where we go, but occasionally we do get into a place where they go out. And then we usually, which doesn't bother us much anyway, because we have little German generator which we start and set at a desired voltage of 250 and plug it into the house, and we have all the lights we need. You wouldn't believe the variety of weather we've had, and that was all from what we were sure was indeed summer to what we got last night, which was 4 inches of snow. Now I want you to see how he has changed the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Every single, can you see looking back?
Mhm.
He has changed the subject to a non-information one,
Mm-hmm.
and then the radio, the taking Doc out,
Mm-hmm.
the dandruff,
Mm-hmm.
the letters, etc. This is the way he used to write it, so that anybody
Mm-hmm.
reading it would know that it was just simply a personal letter. It wasn't really giving any information. That was his way
Mhm.
of getting information through. The place I'm in now has electricity up until last night. In other words, we had it for a couple of hours, and it included a hot water heater, so I had a bath. Need I say more? I shifted the officers around a little, which will explain why Russ and I are eating your gifts. Joe, who's Joe O'Connell, had had the second platoon since Jack Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
And since it is the only platoon he ever had, and he's been through a lot with them, I left him there and gave Jack Westbrook the first platoon, which Russ had had off and on, and he made Russell the reconnaissance officer, and that helps me considerably. As there is so much to be done night and day, and I was doing most of it. I'm not saying that Dave hasn't been in there pitching when I needed him, because he has. But unless something is cooking, Dave is always wandering off looking for loot and everything else. And I can never tell when he's going to get himself and me in trouble. He is by nature a bit on the irresponsible side, but then I wouldn't want him any other way. At any rate, it means that there are 3 of us doing the work, and that makes for a smoother function with less wear and tear on it. I wish I'd had enough officers to do it before, on the move, more later.
Mm-hmm.
But this, I saved this and gave you a copy because it is a very, very good illustration of how he crafted his letters
Mm-hmm.
to give me information that would not be damaging,
Mm-hmm.
but which I would know what it was, and he trusted me not to be talking to the people about the things that,
Mhm.
yeah, so, all right.
Good.